If we go into war and we have to rely on people to turn our back to in the trenches, Israel is the only country we can trust because Israel is the only nation where we share the same values, the Judeo-Christian values, the same ethics, which were the foundation of Western civilization. Now, people may not agree with Israel, may not like Israel. That's perfect. We're just talking about America's interest. If I'm in a trench and I have to depend on one entity, one ally to defend me, I'm not turning my back on any of the Muslim countries, but I can turn my back to Israel.
I think the thing that put you on the map, at least for me, was about a decade ago. I'm sure you know what year it was. You gave a speech outlining the Muslim Brotherhood's plan for America. And we can show some B-roll of it, but you hold the document up and you're waving it at people saying, this is the plan to destroy America. And for, I think, a few years, people probably thought, oh, she's nuts or she's making this up or it's not real or some version of that. However, it has become very clear in the last year or two that not only is the Muslim Brotherhood very real, they are in many, many countries. They are sowing a lot of seeds of dissension and terror. So I guess first, when did that get on your radar? And what year was that speech?
It got on my radar in 2007. I detailed the Muslim Brotherhood plan in my New York Times bestseller that came out in 2008, titled They Must Be Stopped. So since 2008, I've been talking about this. Since 2008, 15 years ago, we're talking. I have flown all over the country, spoke at so many venues all across the country, from groups as small as 8 people to groups as big as 10, 14,000 people in some of these big mega churches. And I would talk about it, and people would shake their head, well, I don't know. And that's why I started taking it with me and showing it to people. Because, we have become a society where, I need to see it. Okay, here is the evidence. Now you can see it. And that Muslim Brotherhood plan was introduced as evidence in the Holy Land Foundation trial in Dallas, Texas in 2007-2008, the largest terrorism financing trial in America's history, where our government handed down 108 guilty verdict to Muslim American and Muslim American organizations, raising money in the United States, over $12 million raised and sent overseas to support Islamic terrorism and terror activity. And in the last page of that plan, they list 29 front Islamic organizations set up in the United States for the destruction of America at our miserable hands, as they say it. And, Obama came to power. And when I talk about these things and I talk about how ISNA, the number one organization in the Muslim Brotherhood Project, in the list at the last page of their plan, ISNA, the Islamic Society of North America, became advisors to President Obama about Middle East policy. NATE, the North Islamic American Trust, owns 90% of the deed to American mosques in the United States. Number 2 on the list is the Muslim Student Association, which has more chapters on American college campuses than the Democrats and the Republicans combined. Number 22 on the list is IAP, Islamic Association for Palestine, which later became CARE, Council on American Islamic Relations. And the only reason they changed their name is because they wanted a name that sounded so peaceful, so unsuspecting to the gullible American public, so they can put themselves forward as not a Hamas front organization or a terror front organization, but as, this peaceful, wonderful Council on American Islamic Relations. So that's when I started talking about these issues, and look at where we are today.
Okay, so can you explain, as it stands now at the beginning of 2026, what is the Muslim Brotherhood plan for America? I mean, we're a couple years out of the BLM stuff, and then it morphed into the Hamas rallies. Now it seems to be morphing into this anti-ICE stuff. But, there are always Palestinian flags at these things. It's the Ilhan Omar and who's the one in Brooklyn, the awful one, Sarsour, the usual just clown car of characters.
Yes.
So what is their plan at the moment? How connected are they to the general upheaval that we see?
Their plan is working perfectly. They're following it to the letter. part of their plan is how to work with the left in order to impact policy. In their plan, they detail about how they need to form groups that infiltrates the Republican Party as well as the Democratic Party, not just in the United States, but worldwide. But I'm going to focus on the United States. They instruct their followers to infiltrate both Republican Party and Democrat Party and rise within the ranks of the party so they can get in leadership positions to influence policy. We see them already doing that, both on the right and on the left. They have been doing that. But right now, we are seeing it specifically on the left because we are seeing, and this is exactly what the Muslim Brotherhood instructs, how to work with like-minded progressive organization on implementing change and advancing their cause. We're seeing this play out. We've seen it play out from 2010 until 2025, when basically the ACLU became the legal arm of CARE, when the Southern Poverty Law Center worked directly with CARE and worked directly with leftist organization, putting organizations like me on the hate list per the coordination with CARE, etc., etc. So we've seen this cooperation going. As a matter of fact, in my last book titled Rise, which came out in 2018, I have a whole chapter titled The Leftist Islamist Coalition, because they have literally built a coalition together, working together. And now in 2026, we have seen this coalition come into a mature stage where their candidates are elected to power. Mamdani, perfect example, elected and supported by an advanced push forward by leftist organizations, progressive groups who lifted him up, supported him, and voted for him and got their people to vote for him. So in this last election, while most people focused on, oh my goodness, Mamdani, became the first mayor, Muslim mayor of New York City, 6 mayors won the election that day. 6 Muslim mayors won the election that day. Mamdani was one of them. 42 Muslim elected candidates won out of 76 that ran in that election. 42 won. The majority of them are supported by leftist organization and progressive organizations who voted for them, got their groups out for them, raised money for them, and got them into position to where they are. And they are working together. And that's exactly why we saw First Order of Mamdani remove the protection of Jews, minority groups like Jews in New York. I mean, they lied through their teeth to get elected, and now we see the results.
So in some sense, it seems obvious to me you can confuse the kind of generic queer for Palestine, purple-haired dingbat at Columbia. But it's you have to kind of give the devil his due here. It's sort of impressive that they can take all of these completely crazy leftist positions and then also sell it to the average Muslim who obviously isn't progressive. I mean, Islam is the least progressive religion. So they've done 2 things quite cleverly. But what they've done to the average Muslim seems more clever to me in a sense.
Yes, but it didn't take that hard because they played the victim card. And the victim card trumps everything else. Misery loves company. All heard that growing up through all our life. Misery loves company. Oh, people love to get together and commiserate. And it's such a strong emotional bond that pulls people together. The emotional bond trumps anything else. You can have an intellectual conversation with somebody and you can agree with them intellectually on this, that, or the other, or can disagree intellectually. But if you come together because you share a feeling, a very strong emotion, you will get together. So the victimhood is the strong emotional drive between the left and the Islamists. So when they can sit together and say, you've been a victim, we've been a victim. Oh, you lost loved ones who died in Gaza, or how you've been persecuted because you're a Muslim. We've been persecuted. They killed our people too. Oh, and by the way, they hate us both because we are people of color, even though, people from the Middle East come, they're not black. Actually, I'm the scholar that comes from the Middle East, So it's not the color issue, but it's the emotional issue, and that's how they played it, and that's how they are getting them.
The imagery you just put in my head between the Queers for Palestine and what I've got going through Ilhan and Linda and everything else is rather disgusting. So let's just move on for a moment. What do you think it looks like the day after they've accomplished what they want to accomplish? Meaning they have this crazy red-green alliance that everyone understands doesn't make sense. Queers for Palestine is very different than Palestine for Queers. They're not for any of these progressive ideals or feminism or anything else. But let's say the Muslim Brotherhood plan comes to fruition, whether it's New York City, it fully comes to fruition, or nationwide or whatever, what do you think happens the next day to their green colleagues
Well,
or their red colleagues, I should say?
it is coming to fruition because we are 35 years into the plan and it's working perfectly exactly the way the Muslim Brotherhood intended it to work. So they are on track and even actually moving beyond their timelines because of the cooperation or the gullibility of the West. They didn't even expect the clever West to be so gullible and to fall into their plan and follow their plan. So that is working already. The end result is transforming America. In their mind, they want the whole world to adhere to Islamic ideology. It's like Iran. When the Khomeini came to power in 1979, the first thing he did is kill all the progressives, is kill all the leftists, is kill all the people who said, we want to make sure we have equality in the country. That's what Carter thought, by getting rid of the Shah and bringing Khomeini, they're going to have equality. Khomeini killed everybody. In America, once the Islamists have their way, they will have no use for the queers for Palestine, the LGBTQ plus, whatever. They have no tolerance for these people because they despise these people. So they are going to turn against the human rights that we believe in, that we respect. I don't care what you do in your bedroom. I don't care what God you pray for. I don't care whether you're religious or atheist. I don't care if you believe in Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, whatever temple you go to, whatever mosque, as long as you are a law-abiding citizen in the United States, you love America as much as I do, as we do. We in America love all people, but they don't see it that way. And Iran is the perfect example of what happens when Islamists become the majority. Lebanon, Gaza, Syria, Egypt. Remember when in Egypt, the Arab Spring, when the Muslim Brotherhood took over? Every place when the Islamists, the radical who adhere to the religion of Islam and the tenets of Islam, take over, it spells disaster to any country or any community where they take over.
If there could be a breakout of an American strike or some version of some sort of war happening in Iran, if the Islamic regime of Iran fell, which has murdered now, it sounds like around 36,000 of their own people in a month. I mean, it's absolutely insane, of their own people. If they fell, is that the blow to radical Islam that maybe could do some irreparable damage to the Muslim Brotherhood plans because their proxies would all be kind of crumbling, which in some sense they are already?
That will be a huge blow to the radical Islamists in the Middle East, not the Muslim Brotherhood plan. Let's put that aside. When the Iran regime falls, and it will fall, it's not a matter of weeks, it's a matter of days now. So when they fall and the Iranian people rise up, remember, they are burning their own mosques. They burned over, I think, almost 350 mosques. So they are rebelling against Islam itself, not just the regime. When that falls, the fall of the regime of Iran will reverberate throughout the world. In the Middle East, I believe the Iranians will sign a peace treaty with Israel. The people of Iran will sign a peace treaty with Israel. Hezbollah will be suffocated. The money tunnel that was funneling money to the Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah, and remember, Hezbollah committed terrorist attacks on 4 continents across the globe, not just Lebanon. They were supporting Islamic Jihad. They were supporting Hamas. All that money flow is gonna stop and die. And also it will destroy them psychologically. 50% of winning the battle is psychological. That will destroy them psychologically. And then I believe Lebanon will come to the peace accord, will join the peace accord. Syria will join the peace accord, the Abraham Accord. It will transform the Middle East, but not just the Middle East. It will enable us to take our military power and divert and start focusing on protecting Taiwan, other interests in other parts of the world. Because remember, the only reason we have a base in Qatar is basically because of Iran. That's why we have a base in Qatar. Imagine the resources that will be freed after that. That is very different than the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood is a Sunni movement. Iranians are Shia movement. There's not many Iranians in the world. The Sunnis, Indonesia, the biggest country in the world, is a Sunni country. 280 million Muslims all adhere to Sunni Islam. So the Muslim Brotherhood and their plan, the Muslim Brotherhood will always have sympathizers all over the globe. And that's why we need to start going after them globally, designating them as a terrorist organization, like what some Arabic countries did, like Saudi Arabia, like big countries that designated them as a terrorist organization because they don't want them there. They don't want to have anything to do with them. They are banned in those countries.
So you kind of alluded to this earlier, but what do you make of what's going on with Qatar? Because we know they are pumping literally billions of dollars into our colleges here, and then our colleges become bastions of leftism and completely the same stuff that you're arguing the Muslim Brotherhood wants to happen. So Qatar has a piece of that. The country itself is basically a slave state. I mean, they have more, in essence, foreign slaves that are trapped there building all of their infrastructure while it's just an oil rich, as everyone says, it's kind of just a gas station in the middle of the Middle East. Yet they seem to have huge influence, and people talk about them way more now than maybe 3 years ago. What's going on there?
Qatar is the new shiny ball. They have no more influence and they have not pumped any more money than Saudi Arabia over the years. I detail in my book in 2006, Because They Hate, my first book, all the money that have poured into American colleges, from Harvard to Georgetown to Columbia to Cornell to Duke. I go down the list of all the money that was funneled from Saudi Arabia, setting up Middle East Study Department and political science departments, and appointing Arab professors who are anti-Israel, anti-America, to teach that Israel is evil, America is the great Satan, and they have done this to the tune of millions. Al-Haramain Foundation out of Saudi Arabia have sent more students paid for by the Saudis from the Middle East into America and all our universities through the 90s, 2000s, the 2010 and beyond. That today is only the new shiny ball du jour that the Jewish community is starting to shine the light on, and that's only after the Hamas war. You didn't hear anything about Qatar before October 7th. So now this is the new shiny ball. Qatar is funneling money into America like Saudi Arabia has been funneling money into America, like Kuwait, like any of these other nations that have money, most notably Saudi Arabia. So yes, they are educating about, they are very pro-Islamist, they are very pro-Palestinian, and they are brainwashing the students. But this is nothing new. This has been happening for years. And we need to open our eyes and realize that, yes, we can do business deals with the Middle East, any country in the Middle East, but you can never turn your back on any country in the Middle East, with the exception of the State of Israel. If we go into war and we have to rely on people to turn our back to in the trenches, Israel is the only country we can trust, because Israel is the only nation where we share the same values, the Judeo-Christian values, the same ethics, which were the foundation of Western civilization. Now, people may not agree with Israel, may not like Israel. That's perfect. We're just talking about America's interest. If I'm in a trench and I have to depend on one entity, one ally to defend me, I'm not turning my back on any of the Muslim countries, but I can turn my back to Israel.
If you have a 401k or an IRA, please listen. Gold is at record highs. What many people don't know is this: you can move part of your retirement money legally and without tax penalties into physical gold you actually own. Alpha Omega Gold helps you do this through a gold IRA. Your gold is real. It is stored safely. It is in your name. Learn more at ao.gold/stand. Alpha Omega Gold is our sponsor, and they proudly stand with Israel.